Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Spira, and I focus mostly on trauma healing, and in my case in particular, childhood trauma, because I have found now over the years in my studies and also in my experiences working with other trauma survivors that there is a difference and that there are different types of traumas that can affect us a little bit differently, and that there are definitely some folks that can heal a little faster than others, kind of depending on the type of trauma. That's something that I've been observing and also am just kind of privy to, especially again, as far as my own healing goes. So the reason I'm making this video is to kind of update you, because I think that there are a lot of amazing, wonderful, and helpful people on YouTube and TikTok as well. There are a lot of amazing professionals out there, professional psychiatrists and therapists who have been doing this work for a long time. And then there are people like me who do somatic trauma recovery coaching and just working with people in a somatic way, because there aren't, to be honest, there just aren't enough therapists out there right now who are doing somatic therapies. Having said that, there are some, and those of you who are out there doing that work, thank you. That's all I can say. Thank you, thank you, thank you. However, when I got into this work, one of the reasons is because it took me years to find a somatic therapist. I'm trying to fill the gap. There just aren't enough therapists, licensed therapists out there doing this work. There are people who are calling themselves coaches. I'm not quite sure like what their training is. So if you decide to work with somebody like that, like I don't even call what I do coaching really. I've considered it. I'm not sure. I don't know if you want to call it that, you can, but the thing is, like, I am certified in these practices. So I don't feel like what I'm doing is coaching. I feel like what I'm doing is teaching you something. And my background is in education. I worked as a public school teacher for almost 20 years. So my master's degree is in teaching. That's my jam. I like to teach, and so every time I learn something new, I like to pass it on. And when I left the teaching profession to go into this kind of work, then that was really the main point for me, was to educate other people who are like me, who could have used this information, and basically providing what I wish I had when I needed it, because it really just wasn't around. When I was first diagnosed with trauma, the diagnosis is still called PTSD, because in the DSM we still don't have complex PTSD, but now we are finding out more and more as we learn, and it'll probably take a number of years before we get any changes or adjustments made to the DSM. In the meantime, we are living in a very, very fortunate time where we actually do have options. We do have various somatic healing modalities that are incredibly helpful. Now, I did regular therapy for many, many years, and I could not figure out, and this was again before I understood what trauma therapy is, because keep in mind, trauma therapy really, we've only really been talking about it for the last 10 years as far as the mainstream goes. So for those of us who were diagnosed before that, it just wasn't even part of the conversation. There was no healing, right? And every therapist that we went to was basically just cognitive behavioral therapy, if they were trained in it, or just talking. So I will admit, as much as I enjoyed therapy and the therapeutic process, I found it limiting. You know, what I really appreciated about it was that I was definitely better able to understand my symptoms, better understand my condition if they knew a little bit about it. But mainly, I wasn't really learning about the trauma. I was learning more, when I say about my condition, I guess I should say, I did gain some knowledge in traditional talk therapy around the cognitive stuff, how I was thinking and why I was thinking in that way. But I wasn't getting any relief whatsoever from my symptoms, none. And I was still getting triggered. I didn't understand anything about the nervous system, and no one had offered me any information. So it wasn't until, for me, it wasn't until I had a full-on nervous breakdown, and I was basically forced to leave my teaching job. And when I say forced, I mean I was just physically unable to go back because my nervous system was completely shot. And after I started to heal, I realized pretty early on that I wouldn't be able to go back into that environment, because I'm going to say something a little controversial, but The teaching environment is very toxic. Public school environment is toxic. So forgive me if there's anybody out there watching who knew me when I was teaching, whether it's ex-students or ex-colleagues. I'm sorry, but public schools are a toxic environment for people that have trauma. And even though they are improving, and even though they are implementing or trying to implement now what we call social emotional learning, which I do firmly believe in. I think it's super important, and I think that that should be provided to students at a young age. No one cares about the teachers. And I understand, like, yeah, the students are a priority, but the teachers teaching the students, even if they don't already have trauma, which is rare because a lot of us have trauma, they're going to get secondary trauma. Secondary trauma is getting those symptoms, those traumatic symptoms, just from being so overburdened from working with people who have trauma. Secondary trauma is a real thing, and it can definitely affect people. But the school systems, the administrations, they don't care about the teachers. They will, you know, maybe offer a local yoga class or something and think that that's enough. Or they'll say things like self-care, self-care, but they don't actually offer any concrete solutions. So, all right, that's my rant about public schools. Having said all of that, coming back here now. So I had my breakdown in 2018. And it is now 2025. So it has been a number of years. Honestly, for me, it feels like yesterday. I can barely believe that it's been this many years. I think about how far I've come. And I have to admit that even though I had many, many years of traditional talk therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy, I have to be honest, I can't say I've noticed any huge improvements until I started my somatic therapy. Now, I had been practicing yoga for a long time before that, and I obviously dove in a little further, just really leaned into that yoga practice. But one of the first things I did was study trauma-sensitive yoga. And then after that, I studied TRE, because I happened to come across it, and thank God for TRE. TRE was my game changer. Now, it might not be true for you, but it was for me. So what I'm going to share today too is all of the other things that I found helpful that brought me to where I am today and how that has kind of manifested in my daily life. Now, I still suffer symptoms. Don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect. I don't feel healed, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take for me to feel like I can even use that word. What I will say, though, is that I have come such a long way, and I'm so grateful for it, and I'm so grateful for all of these modalities. And also, just to tell you to not give up. It is hard, and healing is not linear, and it really takes a lot of willpower. Not everybody has it, and I get that. And I know this for sure, because we can see that for some people, their best way to cope is to drink or take drugs, and I've seen it in my own family. I've seen it in so many places with my own friends. It's hard. The work is hard, but you have to stick with it, and consistency is key. Now, I'm not saying that if you drop the ball to give it up. Please don't drop the ball and give it up. If you drop the ball and you feel like you want to come back to your practices, come back to your practices, start again. Do not give up. That is my number one piece of advice. Do not give up. So, how did I get to this point? And also, what point is that? I will tell you how I feel right now. So, for one, my reactivity has shifted a lot. I used to be so hypervigilant and so reactive that very small things would trigger me. Very small things could make me get dysregulated. And what I have noticed now over this period of time is I do not get dysregulated that easily anymore. I just don't. It doesn't. I used to go from 0 to 60 like that. Like I could get triggered and then boom, I'm dysregulated. And it would happen so fast, I didn't even realize it was happening. And all of a sudden, I'm out of control. I have no idea what's happening to me. I'm like crying uncontrollably, or like I call it ugly crying, and I don't know how to calm down, and I had no tools and all of that. So now I'm at a place where I have more what we call capacity. I have a lot more capacity, because now when things trigger me, or things that triggered me in the past, Now I can sense that I'm getting dysregulated. I understand and recognize the sensations in my body that tell me I'm becoming dysregulated, and then I can respond to those signs, to those sensory triggers, I guess, right? The things, the information that's coming to me through my physical body. I can now respond, and I will not get fully dysregulated because I will now use one of my many, many tools, and I will regulate my nervous system. And once I regulate my nervous system, I'm no longer at risk of being in fight or flight. I'm back in the prefrontal cortex, back to thinking logically, and back to being able to tackle this issue, whatever the issue might be. That's where I'm at now. I still don't consider that being fully healed, because life is always going to be hard. Life will always have stressors and triggers, and I still might come to a place where it feels like a lot, where there's a lot of overwhelm. And I think that that's normal. I think that that's true for a lot of people. But I think now, because I've regulated my nervous system so well, and I have created what we call like a normal baseline, now I'm able to come back to baseline in a reasonable amount of time. I'm not thrown off for a week. I'm not thrown off for 3 days or 2 days or 1 day, because I have my tools. So what are these tools? Well, tools are a number of things. And I want to also stress that one recommendation that I have for everyone healing from trauma is to develop your toolkit. And if you'd like, you can imagine this as this like magical little bag, like a medicine bag that you have, and you put your little tools in it. And your tools can be so many different things. So my tools, first off, is I have nervous system regulation tools. And that is to work with the vagus nerve to regulate my nervous system as needed whenever I start to feel overwhelmed, dysregulated, or even dissociated. My tools for nervous system dysregulation will be different from your tools for nervous system dysregulation. My favorite tools personally are to elevate my hips higher than my heart. And this is a yoga pose called legs up the wall. You don't need the wall. You can do it with your feet on the floor if you want, but you're going to put a cushion underneath and elevate the hips. I actually have 3 videos in my collection about nervous system regulation, or different ways to regulate your nervous system through the vagus nerve. And if you are interested in that, feel free to go back. They go back a few years, but they're still, they still work. All of those tools still work. It's just that the video is a little older, so maybe, go back a little bit. There's 3. And so I have my own, that one is one. Another one for me is diaphragmatic breathing, though I don't use that one as much. TRE for me is another nervous system regulation tool, because for me that serves a couple of purposes. It helps me to tackle the situation in real time. So for me, if I am able to, if I have the space and the time, I will get on my mat and I will tremor before I do anything else. The other one is the elevating the hips. Those are my 2 main go-tos. And it also depends on where I am. So if I'm in public, obviously I can't get on the floor to tremor or to elevate my hips. So if I'm in public, I go with diaphragmatic breathing. And just as a brief review, diaphragmatic breathing is taking a nice deep inhale and then letting the exhale be longer than the inhale. So you'll inhale to a 5 maybe, exhale to a 7 or an 8. That's a very simple one that you can do in public. And they also, you can keep a little straw. You can cut a straw, put it in your pocket or your purse. They actually sell straw like necklaces now out of metal. I actually sell them in my studio. And you inhale through the nose, breathe out through the straw, and that's a great way also to extend the exhalation. The other things that I do are somatic yoga, which is something that I also teach, And for me, that's a way for me to use somatic experiencing skills. And outside of somatic yoga, I also simply use somatic experiencing skills. So I am certified in somatic experiencing, and as I mentioned before, if you want to work with me, look me up, and I'll have information in the description box below. But for me, somatic experiencing tools work really, really well. And the basic gist of those tools are to be able to get grounded, to be able to orient myself and resource, and then to come into my body and start to track the sensations within my own body and to then process specific emotions. So this is all done after the nervous system regulation. The somatic experiencing for me is the tool to go deeper and to do like the healing stuff. The nervous system regulation is also for healing because we need to build capacity and we need to get back to a healthy baseline. But then to do some of the deeper work, we go into these other practices. And like I mentioned, for me, a lot of it is somatic experiencing. And I have a therapist who I do IFS with. IFS is internal family systems. Internal family systems is also known as parts work. I have found this type of work to be extremely beneficial for me personally. And what's really nice is the way that my therapist practices IFS. He actually makes it a little more of a somatic practice as well. So it's a lot more, there are like, how should I say, there are overlaps, I guess is the best way to put it, overlapping with somatic experiencing. So he's using somatic experiencing tools with the IFS framework, and we work through it in that way. And it's really great for me personally because I have childhood trauma, and parts work can bring you into inner child work as well. So for me, those are the main things that I personally do. I know there are other things out there, and I know that nowadays, if you're online, and you know how there are things in like social media that will show you advertisements depending on what you're looking for because of the algorithms. When you're online, you might find all kinds of new things pop up, like, hey, do this like breath work, workshop or whatever. Okay, first of all, I'm going to warn you, if you have trauma, severe trauma, childhood trauma, any kind of PTSD, maybe avoid breath work for now. Breath work is generally contraindicated for trauma, and that's because breath work can be triggering in and of itself. It can be triggering not for everyone, but for certain people, and there are a lot of people who have trauma that just holding the breath can be triggering. So for me personally, I don't do any breath work except for diaphragmatic breathing because it's easy, because it's in and out. It's not like in this, count to 3, hold, exhale, count to whatever. I can't do that. Like for me, that's too much. One of my triggers is suffocation because I was almost drowned once and I was also almost suffocated once. And so for me, no, it's just like a no breath work. So you'll have to decide for yourself, but I am going to caution you against breath work. So forgive me for that. But the biggest ones for me, I think, IFS, somatic experiencing. Now, I haven't done EMDR. EMDR is amazing for PTSD, which is more about one specific trauma, one or two, like a car accident or something like that. For that, something like that, EMDR can be super, super helpful. Now, for complex trauma, when you've had like a childhood trauma where you've had many, many traumas or traumas sustained over a period of time, domestic violence, domestic abuse, things like that, EMDR is not as successful or effective, and only because there are so many incidents that you have to recall in order to process and resolve them. Having said that, I am aware that nowadays there is a there is a version of EMDR that is meant specifically for complex trauma. I am not personally familiar with how it works, but I want to mention it because, again, I just want you to have the information, and it's not so much about only sharing the things that I have done and not sharing other things. If you don't have a lot of heavy trauma, then you might find some of these other things helpful. There are all these other techniques that I'm hearing about, like the rewind technique and all kinds of stuff. I don't even remember the names of half of them. You know, I can't advise you because I don't know if it would work for you or not. I only know that if you have more big T traumas in your life, I would recommend the slower techniques because it takes time. And I don't want you to fall prey to some of these advertisements that are like, oh, you can resolve your trauma in like a weekend or whatever, because that's making promises that they probably can't keep. You cannot go through, 50 years of your life living and struggling with symptoms of childhood trauma, and then they're just going to be gone in a session or a weekend or a month. It's going to take years. And I don't want you to feel discouraged by that. It's worth it. I want you to feel encouraged by it because even though it takes time, once you start seeing how much better you feel, you will absolutely have faith in the process, and you will get to a point where you kind of come out the other side and you're like, yeah, I still have some symptoms, but God, my life is so much easier than it used to be. It just is. And so I want you to have faith in the process, please. Okay? Now, one of the other things is, like I said, the journey is not linear. I found that in a lot of areas of my life, my symptoms were very much resolved. But it also took me not being in those toxic environments, because you can practice all of these things, but if you're still in a toxic environment or in a traumatic environment, it's going to be a lot harder for you. And I don't want to sound like I'm not empathetic or compassionate. I know that if you're in a domestic violence situation, I know you can't just leave. I get it. I grew up in a domestic violence situation, and I know that my mom couldn't just leave for her reasons. I know that when I was a child, I couldn't just leave the situation. So I get that. And I will say to you, if you are able to use some of these tools, please do it anyway, regardless of whether you're able to get out of your situation or not. I will say that it is helpful if you can get out, but if you can't, do them anyway. It's going to help you at least build capacity and at least help you to get your nervous system under control so you don't always feel like you're emotionally out of control. Now, I did want to bring up one more thing too. So as I said, I have gotten a lot of relief in almost every aspect of my life. The one last area for me was relationships, dating and relationships, romantic relationships. I have not had a lot of problems with friendships. I might have had issues with friendships in the past, but over time, I can say that I've had enough long-term, healthy, supportive friendships that have been great, and I've been very fortunate in that area. What I will also say is throughout this healing process, as I've been doing my own healing work, my friendships have deepened as well, and I don't get triggered as much from my friends, because sometimes I could get triggered from my own friends, and I might get into that place where I wanted to split. And if you know what splitting is thinking that people are all good or all bad, and that was something I struggled with a lot, and that is something that I have now overcome. And that is because I've regulated my nervous system, I've built more capacity, and I'm able to think more logically now because I utilize those tools. So after, I did try a couple of attempts at dating back in like 2021 or 2020, and then 2021 or two, I think, and not great. Not great experiences. However, at that time I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put it off. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to wait until I feel better, and then I'm going to start again. And so that's what I did recently. I decided to start again. I decided to try dating again. And, one of the things when you have childhood trauma is you will most likely, I think, 99% of the time, you will have an attachment disorder. So I had, and I say had because I no longer do, I had disorganized attachment, which is also the same as fearful avoidant. I'm not going to go into all the attachment styles right now. If you want to learn more about it, you can definitely, there's tons of people on YouTube to learn more about it. So I started dating again, and usually people who have, you know, disorganized attachment will end up getting together with other people that have attachment disorders as well. And we may not realize it at first. So I entered into this brief relationship. I say brief because it was really only like a month. And what happens is, I came into it definitely feeling more regulated, definitely feeling more secure, and also having learned about things that I should do in my behavior. So I came into this with honesty, and I told the other person that, I'm recovering from childhood trauma, I'm doing my healing work, et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, the person that I started dating thought that they had pretty much healed from their own stuff, but they really hadn't. They also had, I think, disorganized attachment, but I'm not a therapist. I can't diagnose anybody. It's not my place. So, but they came to me and they basically lied and said that they had secure attachment style. And I could tell from the beginning that they didn't, because I've been studying this, I've been learning, I've been working with trauma survivors. Like, I could see the symptoms, I could see the red flags. But it was such a brief period of time that I was still processing all the information, processing some of the red flags, and thinking in my head during this process, like, I'm not sure this is going to work out, because I think this person is probably not a good match for me, and they're probably going to just, trigger me. It's going to be an unhealthy relationship. But since they were very sincere about trying to do their work, I was willing to give it a shot. In that, again, this is within a month, so, don't judge. But I was like, well, if they're doing their work, then maybe we'll see. So that's kind of where I was at. Let's see how it goes, and we'll go from there. And I don't know the reasons, because when you are with an avoidant, usually you get discarded. Like, that is the end result usually, or ghosted. You might get a phone call, you might get a text. So in my case, I got the discarding. I was discarded. And, I did get a phone call, so that was a big plus. But to me, that was that was the bigger, major, glaring red flag, because if somebody does break things off with you without much of an excuse, or if they're very cold, and oh my God, this person was so cold, they went from like, hey, yay, loving, hugging, and all of that, to like, we're done here. Like, that was the breakup. Like, there was no conversation, no like, hey, I have concerns, et cetera, et cetera. In a healthy relationship, you voice your concerns to your partner before they get out of hand, before you get triggered. But when people have these attachment disorders, they don't know that that's happening unless they've really been doing the work. And ideally, if you do get triggered in a relationship because of your attachment disorder, then there's a process, right? So for example, having disorganized attachment, for me, I swing from avoidant to anxious attachment, right? I can go back and forth. If I'm dating someone who's avoidant, I might start to get anxious. And if I'm dating somebody who's anxiously attached, I might start to get avoidant. So in this particular case, again, this is the first person that I dated since really doing more deeper work and getting that nervous system of mine regulated. I didn't actually have the symptoms that I expected to have. Like, I thought I would get the anxiously attached symptoms. And I don't remember if I did. Like, I didn't, because I kept regulating my nervous system. And so I never, there were concerns, but I didn't get triggered, right? So I didn't get triggered with that anxiety, and that anxiety didn't cause me to cling or call a lot or text a lot or do those things. I was living my life. I have a job and I'm busy, and I've been single for so long that I was just busy living my life. And so it wasn't an issue for me, even when they were pulling away a little bit, the hot and cold. There was a little bit of that. That was one of the red flags. When you're together, everything is very close and seemingly intimate and all of that, and it's exciting. And then when you're not apart, there's this pulling away. So, they were definitely doing that. They were definitely doing the pulling away. But I also didn't care, because I was busy. So I guess I didn't pay that much attention to it. I was kind of like, well, okay, that's cool, because, I still have to get used to actually dating a person and sharing my time with a person and all of that. So for me, it was completely fine. But anyway, the point is this, was after the discarding, normally in my past, I would have freaked out. Like if you have anxious attachment or anything, like you know what that feels like, right? Even if you're avoidant, you know what it feels like to get triggered in a relationship and all you want to do is run when you're avoidant. When you're anxious, all you want to do is like cling. You want more information, like, so, I did have some of the symptoms because of course, when you get discarded without that conversation, without empathy, without sitting that person down and simply explaining to them why things aren't working for you or whatever, you leave them like that, like cold in the dust, and they're left with all these questions, right? There's no closure. Now, I'm a firm believer now in my old age that you don't need closure, that a person's behavior, like discarding you, that is closure. But it doesn't mean it doesn't affect you, right? You can be a securely attached person and you can enter in a relationship with somebody who discards you and you will have those symptoms. You will become anxious. And if you have enough capacity, you can work through it and process it, but it's going to shake you up, even if you're securely attached. So for me personally, the point that I'm at now, I have what's called earned secure attachment, which means I'm generally secure now, but I can still get thrown off fairly easily, and that makes me human. It doesn't mean I have failed or that my practices haven't worked. It just means that I'm a human being and that I am just as susceptible to being affected by these other sort of toxic behaviors of other people. So for me, again, grabbed my tools, got into my toolkit, also did a little more just a little more reading around the attachment styles, because to be fair, I hadn't really done a lot of work specifically to attachment styles or to my personal attachment. I just learned by accident that now I do have more capacity. I learned through this experiment, so to speak, that I actually do now have earned secure attachment. I didn't know it at the time, but it was actually really good news because I didn't completely fall apart. Some of the emotions came in like, oh my gosh, what the hell? Like, what's going on? And once those, there was anger, frustration, right? Like sadness. And then that what did I do, right? And that was the first thing that I chased away. Do not let those thoughts get into your head. What did I do? What did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong. If someone discards you, they clearly have issues. They clearly have either an attachment disorder or narcissism. And if that is the case, there is nothing wrong with you, because a secure person would sit you down and have a conversation and let you down in a soft, gentle, easy way, show you empathy, give you a hug goodbye, do those things, you know what I mean? And then you wouldn't feel so freaked out with all these unanswered questions. So I just want you to understand that. Anyway, my point is this. So now this is how far I've gotten now. And I was so afraid that it would take me a long time to get to the relationship portion and what I would do about it. And now I'm not afraid, because I'm okay. I went through this and it was perfect, actually. In fact, if I was still in touch with him, which I'm not, and I won't be, because clearly what he did was really bad and wrong. But if I did speak to him, I would thank him. I would thank him for setting me free. I would thank him for showing me that I'm so much stronger than I thought I was, that I have so much more capacity and resilience than I thought I did, and that I'm a lot more healed than I thought I was. So that's the good news. So I hope that this might encourage you if you're on your healing journey and you haven't gotten to the relationship portion yet and you're not sure if you're ready to try. I would recommend look at your own life now. Notice how your nervous system feels now. Notice what your capacity is like now, your ability to respond rather than react. Keep tabs on your progress. And if you feel like you've gotten to a comfortable place, maybe try dating. And I also recommend to really do more research on dating too, and get like those lists of different red flags. That's going to help you a lot too. And I will also caution you not to do what I did, which was to see red flags and be like, well, I don't know yet. No. My next time is is going to be different. My next time when I see the red flags, I'm just going to nip it in the bud. It's easier to nip it in the bud before you get kind of like drawn in, because once you get drawn in, it's harder to detach from the person. So my recommendation is, yeah, look up what red flags to look out for. And then once you see any red flags, boom, just get out. Even if it's 1 or 2 dates, and don't be like, oh, well, you know, it's kind of slim pickings out there, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it is. It's slim pickings out there. Absolutely is. In fact, I'm pretty convinced that the only people left for people my age, I'm over 50 now, people in my age group, I think the only people left are people that have attachment disorders and past traumas and unresolved issues. I'm pretty sure, and obviously I have no data to back this up, this is purely speculation, but I'm pretty sure that the people who have secure attachment styles are pretty much already in relationships. They're either married because they're secure, right? Or they may be divorced and remarried, you know? So don't let it discourage you. I think the right people are still out there for us, you know? I think if you haven't met your person yet, it's just, like I said, it's yet, right? And that's kind of how I'm seeing it for myself. Like, no, I haven't met my person yet. And yeah, maybe I'll take a little more time off now, or maybe I'll just take my time with it in general. And I already know what I would do differently next time. I will also warn you against pacing, right? Like, make sure you slow down the pace, like really slow down the pace, because that is also a mistake that I made where I was like, well, I'm a big girl now, I think I can handle it. No. No, I was wrong. So definitely slow down the pace. And what I mean by that is, like, maybe don't jump into talking on the phone every day, or even texting every single day. And also, like, spread out the dates, right? Like, maybe once or twice a week, short dates, like 2 hours tops. Go for a walk, go for a cup of coffee. Maybe if it's a museum date, 3 hours, right? Because museums, you might have lunch, you might, you know, really look around. But if it's going to be a longer date, make sure there's some kind of activity that you're doing too, or a hike or things like that. But try not to get alone time too soon, if you know what I'm talking about, because that releases chemicals in the brain that makes you feel attached, and you want to really be careful about that stuff, okay? So please take that as a warning too. Okay, I've been yippy yapping for a long time. I don't even know how long this video is going to be. Please forgive me. I am chatty. I hope you don't mind, but I do hope you found this helpful. And if you found it helpful, please hit the like button, maybe share it, and maybe leave a comment on your personal experience. I really want to hear it. I would love to hear what you've done, anything that you've done to help yourself along on your healing process. If you have suggestions for other people, because when you leave comments, it's not just for me, it's for other people who watch the videos. Because when I watch other people's videos, I always look at the comments. So if you have helpful tips, please share them. If you have a specific trauma healing modality that has really, really worked for you, then please share it. However, I also wanted to say, and if you are looking to work with someone one-on-one, I actually do somatic trauma recovery with people one-on-one, and you can book through my website, and I have 2 actually, because I have a yoga studio, and that's the Embody School. That's the name of the channel, and the website is embodyschool.com, and it should be in the description box below. I do somatic experiencing. I also offer TRE, tension trauma release exercise, and I offer, well, Reiki. I don't really think Reiki, I do Reiki. It's not as big a trauma healing modality, but I also do somatic yoga. So if you need somebody that you want to work with one-on-one, I'm here for you, and I'm happy to be able to offer these as well. And I'm also on this website called heal.me, and they have an app, and that's kind of cool. And I just got on it, and I don't really know much about it yet. I just joined, so we'll see how it goes. But it looks like a pretty cool website. So that's it for today. I really hope that you found this useful. I hope you'll get something out of it. And I wish you the best in your healing journey. And don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Even if you drop the ball, come back. Don't give up. Just keep it going. Keep it moving. Keep going forward. You will start to feel better. And when you start to feel better, that hopefully will encourage you to keep going. Okay, I'm really done. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, and may you be free from suffering. Thank you.